All right, and for more explanation, let's bring in U.S. constitutional law expert and Professor Joshua Kastenberg. Good afternoon, Professor, and thank you for speaking with us.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's break down the impeachment process. If the House votes to impeach President Trump, that doesn't actually mean he's immediately removed from office, correct?
That's correct. The House operates very much like a grand jury, and that means that if the House votes by a simple majority that Trump committed a high crime or misdemeanor, that's forwarded over to the United States Senate. The United States Senate acts more like an actual trial, and that's a process that will probably take 3 or 4 weeks at the earliest.
Now, is impeachment the proper punishment, say, for what Trump has done, for what he said? Is it the right avenue, and is it being used lawfully?
So an impeachment is both a constitutional and a political process. Whether it's right or not, it is entirely lawful and constitutional to do this process. In terms of a punishment, what the world should know about an impeachment and an impeachment trial is that the only sentence from a finding of guilt, and that's 2/3 of the United States Senate, is a prohibition from ever serving in federal office again of any nature. And so that is the one means by which to ensure that Donald J. Trump is never permitted to serve in any federal position as well. And you see this in the actual article that's being voted on by the House. It references the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment is a post-United States Civil War amendment, and there's a clause or section within the amendment that prohibits people who've taken up arms against the United States or committed treason or sedition against the United States from ever holding office again. But an impeachment trial cannot put someone in jail. An impeachment trial does not operate like a federal conviction. However, it does, it's the judgment of history. And so, yes, it is the proper forum to do it in.
All right, Professor Kastenberg, that sort of leads me to my next question then. Some people are saying this is more than just a symbolic gesture of what people want to do, because this would bar him potentially from running for a second term. So that has to get to a Senate trial first, though, correct?
It does. That's exactly right. What the House does today is like an indictment. It's a statement on what they believe President Trump violated. But it is not a finding of guilt in any way, shape, or form. Only the Senate does that. And it's only when the Senate votes that the president is guilty by 2/3 of the sitting senators that President Trump would then be barred from ever holding federal office again.
Now, the Senate doesn't actually return to session until January 19th, so just one day before Trump's presidency comes to an end. So can the Senate resume any earlier?
Well, the Senate can resume earlier, but that would take the the new Senate Minority Leader, Mitch McConnell, who was Majority Leader, and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer to agree on holding it earlier. There's a lot of talk out there about whether the Senate can actually impeach someone once they've left office or not. But actually, the United States Constitution is silent on that. Prior to the Civil War, there are 2 instances where the Senate continued to hold a trial after the individual left office. I believe it's constitutional to do that. You cannot impeach an ordinary citizen, but I think the Senate can impeach someone who once held federal office, as long as the process in the House began prior to the person leaving office, which is precisely what's happening here.
All right, and Professor, we know that, just 1 week to go before Trump's presidency comes to an end. Do you think holding this impeachment vote is uniting the country or just dividing it more?
Well, I think you have to look at it both in the immediate time we're sitting in now and in the long term. There are loyal adherents to President Trump who are promising violence on Inauguration Day and afterwards. There's a handful of them who sit in the House of Representatives. I believe they would be doing it anyway, whether the country proceeded with this or not. But in the long term, I think it's critical for the unity of the United States and the efficacy of our government. We have never had something like this happen before. Essentially an attempted push. It wasn't a riot. What I mean by pushed is an attempt to overthrow a constitutional process of government. It's not a riot. It's an insurrection and a sedition. And if the Senate doesn't articulate it as an impeachable offense, it could happen again, if not from the far right, then from the far left or some other fringe group. So I think it's critical that we do this. and that the United States Senate makes a statement and learns from the past that if it doesn't confront division now, it will, and strife now, there will be a day of reckoning months, years, decades later.
All right, we'll be watching very closely. Thank you so much, Professor Kastenberg. That's constitutional law expert and Professor Joshua Kastenberg.
Thank you.